Welcome to another episode of Shed Manufacturing. In a previous episode, we built the intercooler for Project Turbo E30. Since then, I welded 2 brackets onto the intercooler to mount it securely behind the bumper with some rib nuts. In this episode, we install it for the last time along with some ducting that will help direct airflow through the core. But mostly, this episode is all about fabricating the intake piping. So let's get right into it. So now that we have the intercooler installed down in the front grill area where the fog light and the brake duct used to be, it's time for us to get the charge air from the turbo into the top of the intercooler. And for that, it's going to be some fairly simple piping. So I figured, as it's a nice straight shot, we go ahead and throw a 90 on there and just put a nice little straight piece in just to get the couplers nice and close together. But then I started really thinking about it and figured, well, where's the fun in that? So I made this instead. As you can see, it fits about the same, but it's much more complex.
It's infinitely complex.
So now that we have the charge pipe going to the intercooler in place, we have a better idea of the space that we have around the turbo and the front of the car in order to have a good cold air intake design that doesn't get in the way, which was the main reason that I went for this more sort of complex design. It keeps the pipes up higher and closer out of the way, so that way there's more room up here for the actual airbox. Now I have a short ram filter, like a pod style, that's coming in pretty soon that we'll be able to put on the end of the turbo, but I don't want the air to go directly onto it for water intake and direct strike from dirt and debris. So we're going to build this airbox because we're doing the high beam delete mod on this BMW. So there'll be fresh air coming in here, and it'll probably go more to the side of the pod so that any direct strikes will miss the filter itself. See right there, you can see me scribe a mark between those 2 angled pipes to get around those hoses and AC compressor. There it is right there, my 2 marks. So this is my general way of getting an idea of how I want all of my tubes and pipes to meet up and what orientation I want the bends and the cut angles. As you can see there, I'm getting the 2 marks, the scribe marks that I put on the tubes to line up, and I put a bit of little painter's tape on it. I found that's just sticky enough to keep them where I need them, but don't leave anywhere near the residual goo the duct tape and whatnot leaves. So when I'm doing any of this sort of piping type fabrication, you wind up spending 10 times the amount of time setting up and mocking up and trying to measure and trying different pipe lengths in order to get your tubes to land where you need them. I'm sure there is a better way to do it. This is just the best way I've ever found of getting a decent fit up with your tubes and clearing the things that you don't want them to interfere with. So here I am getting the after intercooler portion of the tubing lined up, and I'm using one of probably the most useful things I've bought in a little while, the 2,000-pound underhoist support jack. I've never used it to support a car, but it is incredibly useful for holding something in place while you're trying to figure out where it's going to go or how you're going to mount it. It gives you a chance to hold 2 things up to each other and then use your hands to mark where that is. So here you see that I've got the first pipe that I made that goes into the throttle body screen right. And that's, although it looks like it's pointed directly at the screen left pipes, there's actually a decent amount of misalignment between the two. So there's going to have to be some considerable pie cuts, and also the spacing of those different angles is going to play a huge role in how nicely those all will be able to fit together. And you see me here with a ruler. What I'm trying to do is ascertain whether or not there's a significant difference in the height at the top and bottom of the tubes, which would tell me if there is a decent angle difference, because it's pretty hard for me to tell from where I'm standing if they're pointed directly at each other or not. So that's what the ruler's there for. A lot of the process is take something off, alter it a small amount, put it back on, see how that changed your fit, pull it off, alter it again. Maybe that's spinning the tube a little bit to change where the angle sends the following tube, or maybe that's shortening the distance of a tube to lessen the amount of final destination move of the end of the pipe. So that way you can get a better and straighter shot at what you're trying to aim at. And found it's an absolutely crucial step in order to have good fitting tubing that goes where you need it to go. My go-to is to scribe instead of use a Sharpie, because it lasts so much better. Once you acetone stuff, you just won't be able to get any kind of an actual idea of where those tubes need to go once you have them clean enough to weld. I found that fixturing has become a much larger part of my life than I ever thought it would be, and a part of my life that I am not good at yet. I found that it takes me a long time to get two tubes to sit next to each other and stay there when I take my hands off them. It's getting better with me, but it's definitely an art to get everything to line up as it should while I'm trying to get my initial tacks on it. Stainless steel tubing isn't quite so bad because it molds into itself as soon as you strike an arc, so you can do a nice little autogenous tack. But aluminium, I am rarely lucky enough to have a tight enough fit up to be able to autogenous tack anything. And when I am, it seems to be such a fragile tack, it's almost not worth it. Although challenging, I find that the tack process is one of the more rewarding of all of the fabrication process for this sort of tubing, because you spend so much time with all of your bits and pieces taped together, and then to finally at least assemble them the way they're going to go into the car. Because the way I typically do it is I'll do a couple pieces at a time and test fit, and a couple pieces and test fit. But as soon as you can get those initial tacks and get it all erected as one piece, there's just something sort of special about seeing it all come together for the first time as one piece of metal with no tape or nothing else on it. With all the pipes welded up, we check for pinholes, fix them, and thoroughly rinse the pipes to remove any contaminants the fabrication process could have left behind. Now on to final assembly, which was a breeze. Thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for the next installment.
What do you mean? You didn't say the magic words.
What's the magic words?
Well, you gotta slap it, right?
That ain't going nowhere.